Share screen.
Share screen.
Share sound. Wait.
All right, share.
Share
Oh,
sound
no.
and share screen.
Did you hit that one? Is that the one that we want to share?
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Okay. When it works, it's always nice, right? I'm Wendy Weiss Simon, and this is Junona Kundrateva.
You got it.
We are English teachers at Chavat HaNoah, Chavat HaNoah Tzioni in Jerusalem. We're a boarding school with about half the population is boarding students, and the other half are day students. The vast majority of our school are Russian speakers, Russian or Ukraine, former Soviet Union kids. Not necessarily first generation. Many of them are kids of Russian immigrants or Ukrainian, right. When we came back, okay, we can move next. Okay, when prior to Pesach, when the war broke out in February, the school was very active with dealing with visiting the refugees and going to the hotels where the refugees are there. No, you can go back 1 second. Okay, yeah, sorry. Basically, we have Nale all the time in a classroom, right? You all know what Nale is, right? Nothing new. We have a Nale class every year from TET, in addition to our normal Russian-speaking population. The school has become a hub for sports and music over the years. So the mixture of the population is very extreme. We have on one level the kids coming from a Soviet background, if we may, and kids who are coming here because they are soccer players. In my American English, they are soccer players and athletes, gymnasts, swimmers, both artistic, which I grew up knowing as synchronized swimming, and now is called artistic, or speed swimming, you know, competitive swimmers. So it's a very interesting population. Okay, and we're really, English is the only thing that is mixed in 9th grade. From 10th grade, when a kid chooses a mikzoa, whatever megamot they choose, some of them are mixed between the Israelis and the Nale, some of them are not. So that's just a little bit about who we are. Next. Okay, in February, the war started. Before we went out for Pesach, there had already been a decision with Misrad HaChinuch, with the government, that we would open up a new class coming back. We started with 4 kids when we came back. I said 11 or 15 in the beginning, but it was really much less. When we came back finally after Pesach, we had about 10 or 12 kids in the class. We're now at about 32. Wow. Okay. So we've been dealing, and the situation is that the kids are between 11 and 16 years old with totally different levels of English, never mind Hebrew and everything else, but totally different. They're all coming in also different situations, okay? A number of them are living in the Chava, in the Pnimiyah. We have kids from all over the country whose mother, in general, there are some kids who are with both parents, but and a lot of them have other family in the country. So at least that is kind of breaking the backs. Go ahead. Okay, so this I basically told you, we started, and always a WhatsApp group. This was updated, we started a kilo. Okay, next. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
So handling heterogeneous classes is familiar to all of us. We deal with it every day on a regular basis. We try to keep our students busy and meet different students' needs. Most of the problems we can anticipate, and we know how to deal with them. But that's in a regular situation, a regular learning, familiar for the kids' learning environment. In case of this group, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We couldn't really plan ahead. So we understood that we would have to adapt this framework to a different age level group with very diverse level of English proficiency and learning abilities. Kids that were coming from very different backgrounds. Some of them were coming from low socioeconomic areas. And what's most of all, they are all in very hectic and very unstable emotional state, especially in the beginning, because they were urgently pulled out of their familiar environment due to the sudden onset war between Russia and Ukraine, and basically put in a totally different environment where everything was new and very different from what they were used to. So we had to be extra careful when bringing up certain subjects in classes, for example, about family or where they're coming from. Like Wendy said, there were kids that came only with a mother because the father was drafted to the army, to the war. Kids whose older brothers or elderly siblings had to stay there for all the various reasons. The other thing is that the class is constantly growing. It was and it still is, and it's a major problem due to the age span also, which is between 11 to 16. We aren't able to use any books, nor we have the curriculum. So there's a lot of improvising, a lot of brainstorming, just a minute, for ideas. We find additional stuff online, all sorts of activities that are suitable for the level. We adjust the level if we need. And basically our final goal is ideally that the kids will be integrated into an age-appropriate class, those that will stay starting September 2022. Yes,
how do I move?
Okay, so they have 6 hours of English a week, 4 hours of regular English classes with me and my colleague, and 2 hours of games with Wendy. Since there was no curriculum, we chose Israel as our central topic of our lessons. Kids learn about the timeline of the Israeli history, historical sites and cultural landmarks, customs and traditionals. Naturally, we try to avoid war-related topics and focus on the other aspects. We implement vocabulary, different language structures. Students came in right after Pesach in the time period of different Chagim, so we connected our lessons to relevant Chagim and celebrations. For example, Lag BaOmer, we brought in marshmallows, and they afterwards joined the bonfire. On the Independence Day, we brought in falafel, so they had a taste of that a bit. So on the Jerusalem Day, we talked about Jerusalem being a home to 3 different religions. So we really tried to help them settle down and get to know the new reality. Again, very carefully, baby steps. In the first lesson, they felt very vulnerable and insecure sitting there in class without really understanding where they were and how long it would last.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. So in the beginning, we were 2 teachers in the class, me and my Hebrew-speaking colleague. The first lesson, we performed some ice-breaking activities to kind of get to know our kids a bit, reduce that stress, the anxiety that they were experiencing, make them feel that they're in a safe place, in a safe territory, that they're very welcome, and that most important is that they're taken care of. Afterwards, we proceeded to initial diagnostics using a variety of different methods. As group was constantly growing, at some point we realized that we had to split them up according to their English level. So the main idea, just a minute, the main idea was to use same topics, but at different levels. We searched for all sorts of activities. There was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of improvising. We had to adjust a lot of things and adjust the levels. For me, teaching, and you can get slide
down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Inclusion to the max. Yes. Get to our inclusive teaching. For me, teaching in this class is a bit easier because we share the common culture and understand where they're coming from. We have the same mother tongue, and if there are issues that raise up or in the classroom, so I use the Russian to resolve conflicts. I'm also familiar with the teaching strategies, methods, and approaches in Russia, which are very similar to the ones in Ukraine. So I understand what they're used to and where they're coming from. So what I can say that towards the end of the year, I've been working with them for 2 months already. I can say that they definitely feel more secure. They participate much better. They feel more confident. And really from the group of confused different age children, we were able to create a safe environment where the students could boost their confidence and still continuing by showing and improving their abilities in English, and they get to bond, what's important, and to communicate with each other while enriching their knowledge and improving their language skills.
Okay.
And there's a lot of positive reinforcement, of course, all the time.
Okay, great. Team, what do you prefer to do when you're on a vacation?
Spend time with my friends, maybe playing some games or active games.
Outside, outdoors, or computer games and stuff?
Here?
Both.
Both.
Okay.
Okay. I have 2 hours a week, a 2-hour block, obviously, because it was such a last minute thing where they put everything together, whatever teachers volunteered. Lilia, our principal, tried to put together a framework so that we could all give whatever was needed. I have a 2-hour slot for games. I do some stuff inside, or luckily it's early in the morning, so at least at the end of the year, we were able to, I took them outside a lot. And the fact that we're on a chava, I have the ability to send them around the chava to go outside and to do things. We're in Jerusalem and it's very hilly, so we don't have really the wide open spaces and everything else, but I have made a number of scavenger hunts, always with candies at the end when they did, but short scavenger hunts of maybe 5 or 6, and I broke them up because I have a whole class. I have all 30 kids at once, not split up. So I break them up. We do a lot of lines. Get into a line by your birthday, get into a line by your year, get into a line, and then I split them up, making sure that I have an older kid with, and then going down so that the groups that are being broken up have that overall break. Also in terms of, obviously, more of the older kids have a little bit better English than not, and we use their phones, these kinds of things, basically to just go and do and hopefully get them out. I do a lot of wide games with the ball tosses and trying to get through the ABCs without breaking or skipping letters or different types of topics, this kind of stuff. But you know, so the different games different types of games that I used, you're going to see it on the slideshow. You can have it later. I did origami, which my kids love in general, but this was also one of the ways. I don't have Russian. So for me, when there were lots of comments or kids making comments one to the other, and then you can see that the anxiety raising and the stress raising in the class. So I would kind of change the topic and I would move to something else if for whatever reason. So yeah. Okay. High points. What kind of things? For me, it was definitely, we're not in Kansas anymore. That was like the thing. I had kids when I would say to them, oh, where do you live? And I would get some town in the Ukraine or something in Russia. And again, we have kids from Russia and from the Ukraine. And most of them are Olim. Okay. They were kids either who had just gotten here for all different reasons, or there was in the plan, all right, or they decided at this point, okay, this is what we're going to do, all right. So they're not officially listed as refugees, but we don't know exactly what the story is going to be. Yes, what Yunona said, the idea is that they will be integrated into their age-appropriate classes from September, and then we'll deal with them in terms of English and Hebrew also, because they've been in Ulpan at this point. But getting them, these are kids who had absolutely no idea where they fell from. Just like what was Dorothy in Kansas, right? The temperature was different. All of a sudden, everything was different. And they didn't even have that ability to get there. Acclimate or rebel, most definitely. I saw it in my class. I see it between the kids. I have one kid who's a Hebrew speaker, And he at times will say to me, oh, you don't want to get involved in this, or they're talking about da 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 da, or this kind of stuff. So it's also very interesting. Okay. Again, that's exactly what I said, not knowing what I was getting myself into. But I would definitely do it again.
Can I just
For me,
tell
it
you
was an
that you've
interesting
got,
experience
excuse
in,
me, you just have 5 more minutes of your presentation before
We're at
questions.
the end.
okay?
we're at the
Oh.
end, so.
Perfect.
And for me, it was a very interesting experience in really challenging my ability to improvise, to create things, to adjust myself to constantly changing dynamics of the class. So I'm happy to contribute in this project.
That's it.
Okay. At the end, we have, thank you. We have some, I just put it,
Some slides of
It's,
things that Junona did in class that'll
with
go
the-
when you send it
exactly,
out.
with the links. Okay.
You can stop sharing.
I would love if you could send me this presentation. We also have a class of Naale. I would love, I mean, right now we have like, I went into the last class with 10th graders this year and I had 2 new students from Ukraine. And I'm like, let's sum up the year. And they're like 40 minutes in the year. And they're like, so I sympathize and I empathize with all the problems and challenges that we have with working with Naale classes, especially in this troubling times. So I would love to, if you could send me the slideshow so I could share it with my team as well.
You're actually
that
going to, everybody's going to be getting all the slideshows, not just
Oh,
this particular one. Melissa's going to put it all, oh, Debbie, someone's going to put it all together, and anyone who was here today will receive all of them. What
Okay.
school are you at, Lior?
Vitzon Achlat Yehuda.
Okay, thank you.
Tommy, you had a question.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Mute.
Right,
Hi.
that better. Okay, so I joined this room because in a couple of recent years, I've been investigating in inclusive instruction, in particular differentiated instruction. And I wanted to know, Junona, if you're
Yes.
familiar with the differentiated instruction. Is it from
Yes.
there? Yes, you are. Okay, first of all, way to go. I think even people who are dealing and exploring differentiated instruction, it's really such a situation is almost impossible. So really, באמת להוריד את הכובע, שאפו, because you're doing mitzvah for these people, and I believe that you can also enrich your own teaching. I'm quite sure you feel that way, and implement it on like regular classes. But באמת כל הכבוד.
Yeah, and like I said, we're familiar with heterogeneous classrooms, and we
Yeah,
have
everybody.
starting 9th grade, we have Naale kids. So oftentimes I find myself, especially in the lower groups, you know, teaching using 3 languages, the mother tongue of the Russians, the low level Hebrew speakers. So, and giving differentiated instruction is something that I experience on a daily basis. The difficulty here was the age span.
Also, their maturity, obviously coming from the age, but also the whole thing that Judy's been talking about with the cell. All right, here were kids that P-elif of the way we had to relate with our own kids, you know, the Israelis in the classrooms and post-COVID and everything else. Here now we're dealing really was this sense of, oh my God, how would I deal? And for us seeing all this stuff on the news, especially in the beginning, now we don't get it as much, but knowing what they're coming from and the dynamic also, there are Russian and Ukrainian kids in the same class, not only in this class, but in the school, right? Where we have had, and everything's been dealt with really well from my point of view as a, you know, but also the fact that English is the only place where Nale and the Israelis come together in 9th grade, and even in some of the others, depending on what classes the kids choose. Math, for example, is taught separately, which is interesting to me, but that's okay. And everything else, the kids are getting Ezrachut in their homeroom classes, or they're getting history in their homeroom classes. So there's, except for the kids in the Pnimiya, there's not that much kesher between them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yonona and Wendy. That is just really, I have chills, and I'm thinking things go together so well. I started out, I was in Sharon's Young Ambassadors, and in a way that's happening here real time. And also the newspaper with 3 languages that we saw at the break has great potential perhaps for these
Good.
kinds of situations, because really every level, everyone can be doing something. But here, empathy for the other is not just a word when you have Russian immigrants and Ukrainian refugees in the classroom together, and it's all fresh and open. And wow, hats off to you for all you do and for your presentation this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I
Other
think that's-
questions from the crowd? Let's see, did people write anything in the chat they wanted to ask? Or
somebody
our
wrote
speakers have
something in the chat.
spoken?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Back to the main room.
Okay.